Hello, hello, welcome, please come in. It's time to resume our no-shopping journey throughout Final Fantasy. And that resumes this week in Final Fantasy VI. I'm curious to see how not being able to shop in this game will compare to other games. But first it's time for some light war crimes. We break through Narsha's defenses and it's time for the first boss, Ymir. And this fight is completely identical to normal, just blast some Magitech beams at the snail. Try not to attack while it's in its shell. Fail, get annoyed, and win the fight anyway, because it's the first fight in the game and it's not particularly difficult. I then wake up in this house and can steal an elixir from this clock before bailing. Not being able to buy any healing items may make this game a little more complicated, so any free healing I can get will be nice. Terra's in danger, which means it is time for Locke to hop in and save the day. Along with 11 Moogles. And people keep recommending Mog to me in the comments, so I may as well grab the free dance you can get in this cave. How useful dances end up being is questionable, but we'll see. Aside from that, Locke himself is also quite useful. He can steal, which means my item stocks are slightly less empty than they otherwise would be, at least for the portions of the game he is, or can be, in the party. I do make sure to steal the Mithril Spear from Mog before dropping the boss down a hole. Terra is safe, but I should pop into the adventuring house to steal the treasures here. Narsha is going to have a decent number of shiny items throughout the game, but some random consumables are all I can get for now. Onwards to Figaro Castle. Here I can join up with Edgar, whose tools normally make him a great addition to the party. However, most of these are purchased, and the only tool I have at this point in the game, other than Edgar himself, is the auto crossbow, which is all target damage, but it isn't great all target damage. Anyway, Kefka shows up to find Terra, so it's time to bail via Chocobo. And so far things haven't been too difficult, though Edgar only having auto crossbow already sucks a lot. I miss his better tools. That does likely mean Edgar is not going to be in my final party. Into South Figaro Cave, I can leave the treasure chests here to be upgraded as the game goes on, but I think I'm going to just grab them now. For reasons that will become fairly obvious, if they aren't already, I suspect treasures are going to be more valuable now than they would be later. South Figaro has a good number of items to loot from various barrels and such. I will be playing this game a lot more thoroughly than normal. And now that I've reached the first proper town, a reminder. A shop is any place I exchange gil or other goods for an item. And an inn is not a shop. So I can heal, but that's basically it for this town. Time to head to Mount Colts. Oh, these boys have bandanas to steal? That is at least a small defensive upgrade. My concern is that, much like FF2, my defensive equipment is going to really start to lag behind when I can't buy the latest stuff. I guess we'll see. Anyway, time for this bozo and his bears. Good news is that his bears have high potions to steal and aren't particularly durable. Bad news is that Vargas hits pretty hard against the entire team. Thankfully, I can use Terra's limited magic to heal. So Sabin is here to finish the fight, and I selected the wrong command. Okay, do that again, but better this time. And by better, I of course mean wasting 2 Phoenix Downs resurrecting Terra. What is wrong with me today? Zeph, get it together. Anyway, Sabin back in the fight, except this time I select the proper combo to actually win the battle, and that means Sabin is in the party. He will be very useful because he is always very useful. Into Returner HQ to do even more looting. Here I can have a chat with Bannon about what the returners are and blah blah blah, I do not care. Then reject Bannon 3 times to get the Genji gloves. This lets me dual wield weapons, though actually the gauntlet letting me 2-hand a weapon may have been more useful, considering I'm going to get a pretty limited supply of weapons. Oh well, way too late now. Time for a rafting adventure. In theory this should be quite easy because Bannon can full heal the entire party for free every round. Doesn't stop me from having to use a Phoenix Down on Sabin in the first fight because I'm stupid. This run is starting off so good. 10 out of 10. Alright, next boss time. Against Ultros. Ultros is weak to fire, making Terra's magic even stronger than normal. Sabin has strong blitz attacks, and while Edgar doesn't have his best tools, his high strength stat and Mithril Spear deal pretty good damage. This fight is rarely difficult. Time to split the party, and I'll be starting with Locke. His route starts with a fun sneaking adventure involving stealing clothes from just a lot of people. Why is everyone the exact same size as Locke? Not gonna dwell on that. Instead, it's time to rescue and then recruit Celeste, and then forget you need to pick up this key to open the clock exit. And on the way out, I pick up some shiny treasures, like the great sword and this ribbon. Ribbons are always great. Still surprising to me that they let you get a ribbon this early in the game. I do appreciate it though. Status immunities are always nice. Back into South Figaro Cave, and I give Celeste the Hermes sandals for auto haste as per normal. Using Runic to stop the Tunnel Armor's spell barrage is really the only way to survive, which leaves Locke to slowly slash down the Tunnel Armor's HP, which goes slowly, but fine. Okay, so over to Sabin. I immediately recruit Shadow just to have another character. It is a shame that Shadow's throw command is so reliant on purchasing items. It means he won't be super useful at really any point. Good thing poor item access can't hold Sabin down, not when earrings exist. Oh, Satellite, why must you be so obnoxious? You were guarding some new headgear though, which is always a boon. Anyway, Kefka did some normal purpling of the water supply of Doma, which made everyone very tired for some reason, and Kyan is mad about it. Which means he will join the party on our quest. Hooray! Anyway, Shadowy Forest into Shadowy Train to the Afterlife, but I still have a dozen hours of playtime left, so it's time to bail from this train. Oh hey, Rising Phoenix. An all-target, free attack against all enemies. Love it. And here I can also grab a second earring to really amp up Sabin's damage. Gotta love that bonus magic damage. Then suplex a train, because it's funny, before throwing out a Phoenix down to end the fight, which I probably should have actually saved. I might need that Phoenix down. Oh well, too late now. Time to rob Shadow of all his equipment before jumping down a waterfall. This brings me to the Veld and my first insurmountable obstacle. I need dried jerky, and the only way to acquire it is to buy it. I did check lists online, and while many say you can get jerky from a variety of monsters, everyone I checked indicates that this was from using the Ragnarok Magicite's morph power. So, completely inaccessible to me in this moment. So, very sad, but I'll have to buy a single jerky to recruit Gao. Though, spoilers from the edit, I do end up with a piece of jerky in my inventory later, but I genuinely don't know where it came from. I only ever purchased one, and I never used the Ragnarok's morph summon even once. So, if anyone can explain another place to get jerky, I would appreciate it, thank you. Anywho, that means Gao is in the party, and I can get the diving helmet, ride an underwater current fighting enemies as I go. The lack of jerky means I will never get any new rages on Gao, but the ones he starts with are actually pretty good. It's a shame that getting Gao's rages is so tedious, and nearly impossible when you can't buy jerky to get him back in the party. That underwater ride got me washed up in Nikia, a town with a bunch of new shops I can't use in any way. And the only place to go from here is to catch a boat ride to South Figaro, and conclude Sabin's story. Then join back up with Tara and Edgar to continue our fun raft ride. Which, after all the interesting stuff everyone else did, is very boring. Sneak back into Narsh, and the party's reunited, and it's time to fight off the Empire. Party composition will be Edgar, Celeste, Locke, and Sabin. Celeste has magic and runic to stop spells, Locke can steal, and Sabin is a machine of ultimate destruction. And I guess Edgar has a crossbow. Which also means fewer characters to outfit, which is always a boon, but is even more of a boon when I can't just buy all the stuff I want. Kefka's troops are all very easy to push through, mostly because Sabin is stupidly strong. I also appreciate auto battle, meaning I don't need to re-enter the commands every time I want to destroy my foes. Time for Kefka, who goes down very quickly and very easily. There's just no way he can stand up to the frankly unreasonable amount of damage I'm doing. Ah, love some nice DPS in the morning. Tara encounters the Esper again and freaks out, so it's time to follow after her. But first, I'm going to loot this room for all kinds of goodies. Very nice. Okay, now it's time to head out, which means taking Figaro Castle over to Kalinkin, which has nothing of interest, other than sad flashbacks I do not care about. Then a brief stop in Jadur to use the inn. And it's on to Zozo, my actual destination. And there is actually a lot here to pick up. First on the list is the chainsaw, a very nice upgrade to Edgar's tool access that doesn't need to be purchased. Then the brigand's gloves to improve the success rate of Locke stealing. And then a new weapon for Sabin to greatly improve his damage. Next boss on the list is Dadaluma. Except Sabin and Edgar tag team the boss so effectively, it's barely worth talking about. Anyway, more flashbacks and I get my first Magicite. So I can start learning magic on my characters, meaning the impact of equipment is going to quickly become not irrelevant, but certainly less impactful. Oh well, spellcasting o'clock, here we are. But Magicite in hand, it's time to head to the opera. A very normal progression of events, I assure you. Celeste is going to be playing the part of opera star, which she is already very good at. Was Celeste moonlighting as an opera virtuoso? Is that why we never see the real opera star? It was always Celeste in disguise? Anyway, the opera scene is lovely, but boring. Time to move on. To Ultros, trying to drop a heavy weight on Celeste. Which of course means it's time to fight through some operats and another fight against Ultros. Which takes tons of damage between Rising, Phoenix, and Chainsaw. Locke does die though, because Ultros actually deals some pretty good damage. Anyway, shenanigans concluded and we recruit Setzer, and more importantly, his airship to the party. Huzzah! Time to head over to the Empire to deal with them directly. Which starts by looting all the random treasures around Albrook. We love free stuff. Then do the same in Miranda, because free stuff is free stuff. And it's into Vector, the Empire's capital, to sneak into the Magitech research facility, which is also full of shiny new items that I absolutely want to add to my inventory. We should have come here earlier. The Empire is so full of so much stuff to steal. And next boss fight, which is against Shiva and Ifrit, both of which are immune or absorb fire and ice damage. Good thing that I was able to grab the chainsaw and Zozo. It is dealing big damage and manages to end the fight pretty quickly. And it gives me 2 more Magicite. Love more Magicite. Particularly Shiva because it gives Osmos. Anyway, next up is number 024, which is finally not messing around. I do get some big hits in early with Aura Cannon and Jump, but then 24 manages to KO Celeste, removing my only good healing from the fight. Part of that is the confused status it loves to inflict, part is the barrier changes that stops Aura Cannon. Edgar does manage to bring down the boss, but it's pretty close. Okay, well that was more difficult than I'd expected. Normally that fight is a breeze. Hopefully not a sign of things to come. Pressing on, and I get some new Magicite before Celeste sacrifices herself to teleport Kefka and his troops away, proving again that she is the real main character of this game. And that means it's time for a train ride, which is always a risk because it means no healing between fights, and while I do have actual magic, that's hardly a holistic solution. Huh, these Magna Rotors do have shurikens. That might end up helping make Shadow more useful later on. And while it's not as strong as I'd like, Auto Crossbow is pretty useful in these fights. Anyway, next boss time, and this one is properly difficult. Number 128. Rising Phoenix does deal a ton of damage to all 3 targets, but the right and left blade regenerate pretty quickly, and the damage and self-healing is pretty rough. Edgar goes down, but I'm short on Phoenix Downs left because I wasted them all being an idiot earlier. I'll get Ray's magic soon to make that less concerning, but for now it means Locke and Sabin have to handle the rest of the fight by themselves. Which they do manage, but it's pretty close. And it's already next boss time. Made more difficult because my stupid butt didn't bother to heal between 128 and now, so I need to fight the boss a man down. Okay, I need to use a Phoenix Down. I'm just taking way too much damage to last very long without a full party. And it doesn't even help because then Sabin goes down. And then Locke. And after wasting all my remaining Phoenix Downs, I managed to just barely win the fight. Okay, that was tough. I was not expecting any fights to be difficult once I got Magicite. I guess Magicite still has a decent chance to grow. And then a sad backstory about Terra's parents, which is well written but is not relevant to me. At the end of this, I get Terra back to replace Celeste as party mage fighter, which is always a nice role to fill. And with Terra back in the party, the decision is made to get help from the Espers. But first, it's time to properly recruit Mog into the party. This does come at the downside of not getting a golden hairpin, so it better be worth it. Mog can only equip spears, so he gets his old mithril spear back, because I don't actually have a better spear than that. And now that Mog is in the party, it's time to grab some dances, which work very much like a hybrid Berserker and Geomancer, which already makes them a bit dubious of value. I guess I'll see. Worst case scenario, Mog has a decent magic stat, and magic in this game is busted. Before I proceed to my next destination, it's time to learn some magic on the Veldt, because the enemies here don't give any experience. And then head through the Imperial Fort into the sealed cavern. Oh, this place is full of shiny items. Gonna be grabbing all of these. Oh, geez. Okay, that ninja fight came a lot closer to killing me than I thought. Admittedly, I have healing magic, and I really should be using it more than I am. Oh yeah, I forgot this game gives you the Ultima weapon so early. Very weird. Anyway, there is no boss here, just a big cutscene of a bunch of Espers flying out and making trouble. So it's time to head back to Vector, but this time to negotiate with the Emperor. Excuse me while I answer all these questions perfectly, on the first try, from memory. I definitely didn't have them pulled up on another monitor. That would be silly. Anyway, that's successfully done. I can make a brief detour back to the observation post to grab some more treasure. Some of this is just a bunch of money, but the rest of it's fairly useful. Now it's time for Locke and Terra to head over to Albrook and catch a boat to Thamasa. Shadow is also technically in the party, but refuses to participate in any of the actual plot here, so he is not relevant. But Thamasa is full of actual mages, and this house randomly catching fire for no actual reason means Locke and Terra must team up with Strago, because this place is filled with bombs. These are weak to both water and ice magic, which thankfully my party has a pretty good stock of, not the least of which because Strago has powerful lore abilities, which will be useful for this area. The bombs themselves are not particularly interesting though, being very one-shottable by anyone in the party. I do get to pick up elemental rods in this fiery room though, and I am very fond of elemental rods. Anyway, Flame Eater time. The bombs that accompany it are not super dangerous, since Aqua Breath can kill them all in one shot, and while the Flame Eater can summon backup and deal decent damage, Terra is dealing big damage with Blizzara, and Locke can keep the party healed up with basic cures. I should have probably made sure to learn Osmos on Terra though. Oh well, basic attacks are enough to finish the fight once her MP runs out. Realm is rescued, and Shadow still refuses to join the plot. Oh well. Strago is down to help us meet up with some Espers, and that means it is time to explore Esper Cave, which does have a healing rod, which is an always useful weapon. Now there are absolutely some lores here I could learn for Strago, but spoiler, no lore is stronger than the general magic you can get access to, so I will not be taking the time to learn any of them. And exploring this area means it's time for the next boss, Ultros. Again! Ultros is still weak to fire, which means my fire spells from Terra can deal really big damage. I really should have taught either Locke or Strago Kira, shouldn't I? Oh well, good news is that I can deal enough damage, so this fight isn't too bad. And while my healing magic access is limited, the healing rod is actually quite strong, albeit only on a single target, and Terra hitting with a Flame Tongue actually deals almost as much damage as Fyra. I always forget how red magey Terra's stat spread is. Anyway, Realm shows up to paint Ultros, and he flees in terror. Then I can get some fun costumes for Strago and Realm before meeting up with rampaging Espers to convince them to calm down. Which of course paves the way for Kefka and the Emperor to betray everyone. Oh no, who could have seen this coming? That having gone as badly as it is possible for a thing to have gone, Kefka has lifted up a mountain to be his new base of operations, which is not great. But I am more than equipped to deal with this nonsense, and by that I mean it's back to the Veld to learn more magic before I continue. And that is done, so it's time to attack Kefka's big floating island, which starts by having way too many fights against the exact same flying mech enemies in a sequence which is both very tedious and easy. This is really the best showing Mog's dances will have in the entire game though, since they are fairly useful here and help me preserve my limited HP and MP. It would help if Mog weren't that underleveled though. What is that HP? And then it's time for another Ultros boss fight. He seems to have become even weaker to fire damage than he previously was, which means he goes down very quickly. Typhon then drops very quickly to very strong blizzard magic, then it's time to take down Air Force. Which really just means Terra spamming Thundara while Locke keeps the party healed, right up until the point where this node shows up to absorb elemental attacks. Then it's time for the basic hit things strategy to end the fight. It is still a bit meh, because my weapon access is actually garbage, but it is enough to win the fight. On to the floating island proper, and I need to be very careful because the random encounters here are no joke. But I also need the experience to get Mog and Shadow up to par if I want them to be even passably useful in the next boss fight, which starts now. And Ultima Weapon is no joke. After Ultima Weapon stops yapping, the fight can progress, and there's really no time to mess around in this fight. Shadow can start by throwing the random throwables I've been stealing to deal pretty good damage, and Terra can use Trance to vastly improve her damage potential for a good chunk of the fight. Ultima does have constant flare access and gravity magic, which is no joke. A single flare can take out half a party member's HP. So Mog and Locke have no real choice but to spend the entire fight doing everything they can to keep the party alive. But while Terra does drop to 0, the combined Trance and throw damage was actually enough to eat through most of Ultima Weapon's HP, and the fight soon ends. Okay, that wasn't too bad. My limited throwables and resurrection items aren't ideal, but sometimes all that damage is all you need. Then Kefka betrays the Emperor, as you'd expect, and Celeste and Shadow beat up Kefka just enough for the party to make their escape. Before I have to wait at the airship for Shadow to catch up, which is real fun. Just hanging out here, doing nothing, for several full minutes. Then things go great for everyone. Nothing bad here at all, just a normal day. Anyway, time to feed some fish to Sid to keep him from dying, though you actually get nothing for doing this. Is it faster to let him die or to heal him? I should look that up at some point. Whichever is faster is the way I want to live my life. Then Celeste can raft over to the mainland, such grace, and do just a short bit of grinding. Celeste is a bit underleveled for the next few areas, not quite as bad as in my no magic run, but still a bit weaker than I'd like. Okay, a few levels gained and it's time to hop over to Tsen to deal with Collapsing Building Dungeon, which is pretty easy by itself, but it does have some neat treasure worth stealing, and anything worth stealing, I want. Completing this recruits Sabin back into the party, and his stupidly unbalanced blitzes are exactly what I need in these trying times. Then head over to Nakia via Chocobo and it's time to stalk, definitely not Edgar, all the way to South Figaro Cave, because we haven't been in this cave enough times yet, apparently. This friendly turtle gets us into Figaro Castle, and we join up with Edgar to face the next boss, Tentacle Floor, which is a pretty easy fight. These tentacles can grab a party member to incapacitate them, but only if they have already been slowed, and Sabin and Celeste both have Hermes sandals equipped, meaning they are immune to slow. The tentacles do have different resistances and immunities, so I do have to be a bit methodical in destroying them, but that's fine. It just means the fight takes time, not that it's actually difficult. Edgar is now back in the party, though because of the limited access to tools, he will not be staying in the party for very long. Figaro Castle rescued, I can head over to Kalingen to recruit Setzer. Setzer is not useful, but recruiting him is necessary to getting a new airship, so recruiting Setzer is kind of mandatory. And by kind of I mean it is just mandatory. I don't really need to hem and haw on that. And with Setzer in the party, I can access Daryl's tomb, which has some nice items in it, but is otherwise not that exciting. So it's time to face down the Dullahan, and it starts by casting Level Question Holy and Blizzaga to kill the entire party. Because of course it does. Okay, so Level Question Holy is actually based on the last digit of my gil, which was a 1 when I went into that fight, hence the party wipe. So now it's time to do a few quick battles to get that to something a little more reasonable, like a 9. I can then have Celeste focus on using Runic at every opportunity. This will stop most of Dullahan's attacking power. Not all of it, and those physical attacks are pretty strong, but negating all the spells it can cast is more than worth the time it takes to use Runic. However, keeping my party alive also takes a lot of work. So Sabin is my only real offense, which he's pretty good at, but not great. Oh, Sabin's basic attack deals more damage than Auric Cannon? Alright then, that actually makes my life simpler. I mean, it would be nice if Edgar were even slightly capable of hitting, but sure, fine, I guess this will do. This fight is kind of tedious, and I would prefer not to have to play this defensively, but the alternative is a total party wipe, so I'll take what I can get. Now that I have the airship, most of the optional quests in the game are now open to me, and while there are many orders I could do these in, I'm going to start by re-recruiting Terra. It's a pretty simple quest, and her magic access should be very helpful in the next few areas. And that starts by fighting Humbaba, who is pretty weak to bio and basic attacks, and chainsaws it turns out, which is pretty convenient, because that is all the things I brought. That done, I can leave and immediately come back, because I already have the airship, which means fighting Humbaba again. And it is indeed still weak to bio, chainsaws, and blitzes. However, he then removes my 2 best party members from the fight. Good thing is that then Terra joins the party in a permanent trance, which means big bio damage for the rest of the fight. So, while Edgar and Setzer are pretty limited in their actual usefulness, Terra can cover the damage aspect of the fight on her own. And then some. This means Terra is back in the party, which is great. We love having a strong spellcaster added back into the team. But I'm not done reassembling the party yet. And next on my recruitment list is Locke, so it's time to fly over to the Phoenix Cave. This dungeon requires me to split my attention between 2 different parties. The cave itself has no treasures, because Locke stole them all, and no boss. So we can cut to skipping Locke's sad backstory and getting the very useful Phoenix Magicite. And all the treasures Locke stole from the treasure chests in the dungeon itself. But more important than either of those is Locke rejoining the party. Not because of friendship or anything stupid like that, it's actually because Locke can open the locked doors in Narsh and get access to the back room of this building. This blacksmith has the Ragnarok Magicite. He can refine the Magicite into a very strong sword, but no sword in the game could possibly be as powerful as the Ragnarok Magicite itself. Because that means I have now gained access to the Ultima spell, which means the game has now ended. Oh, but while I'm here, I should recruit Mog back into the party. I've reached the point where dances are probably just not worth using, but I've gotten this far. I'm sorry, is Mithril Spear still the best spear I have? Where are the better spears? Whatever. I also grabbed Katsali from this beach because time magic is good to have. And with that in hand, it's time to head over to Jadur. This is my next destination because I'd like to get Realm back in the party. She does have the highest magic stat. This area has big haunted mansion vibes, which is always fun. Not difficult though, as I spent some time off screen teaching both Celeste and Terra Ultima. Which means these encounters are all pretty... I didn't realize those enemies die if you drain all their MP. That's interesting. The only downside of Ultima is it is pretty MP expensive, particularly when you're too lazy to think, so you just cast it constantly in every fight. Anyway, at the end of this dungeon, it's time to get into a fight with a painting, which immediately charms Mog, and Osuna apparently doesn't fix that, which isn't ideal. Then Terra drops to some quick damage, and Celeste drops because of the cursed shield that I am trying to purify. Not great. Fortunately, Locke has resurrection and healing magic to bring the party back up to full, and then I can just spam offensive spells to bring the painting down. That was closer than it should have been. But at least I didn't actually manage to die like an idiot, so my next destination is the Cultist Tower. Except the area is kind of annoying because you can't run from encounters, so actually I'm gonna head back to Narsh. First, to completely destroy Valagarmanda. Ultima means this is not a difficult fight, and thanks to comments I know I can cure Frozen with a basic fire spell. This gives me a new magicite, which provides a nice magic boost on leveling up, then back to Mog's Cave to grab the Malulu charm, which disables random encounters, which will make Cultist Tower a breeze. Since I'm here, I may as well grab the Midgard Stormer magicite and recruit Umaro. He may end up being useful to some degree. Wait, do I still not have any better spear than a mithril spear? Where are the spears? Oh well, time to take a long walk up Cultist Tower, which is very, very boring. Ooh, force armor. That magic defense and evasion should be very nice. At the top of the tower, I get the Soul of Thamasa, which unlocks dual casting. And then it's next boss time, Magic Master. Oh shoot, I unequipped the ribbon from Celeste, which was the only thing keeping the curse shield's many statuses from destroying her. Let's just go ahead and reset and start this fight again, because I'm going to need all the magic access immediately in this fight. This fight is a bit complicated. Magic Master, as the name suggests, is a very powerful spellcaster, but like most spellcasters, he is vulnerable to Reflect. So I need to cast Reflect on the entire party very quickly. However, I also need to cast Re-Raise on my party so that they can survive his death attack. This takes a little bit to get all the buffs up that I need, but I do get my party fully buffed and fully invincible. Then I'll just cast Ultima a few times, get Re-Raised after the Magic Master's counter, and that is a victory. And no, I'm not going to recruit Strago because I simply can't be bothered to use him. Next, I should take down Death Gaze. Oh, looks like I should actually level up just a bit so my party isn't so vulnerable to level 5 death, huh? And while I'm at it, I think I'll just do the big endgame grind to get my characters up to the appropriate levels to face down the game's final challenges. Because the endgame is in sight and I'm well past the point where can't buy things would be relevant. And that grind done, let's get into the final dungeon boss rush. Which means making up 3 parties. Because I couldn't be bothered to prep the whole team, each group is going to be going in a bit light, and I particularly need to divide up my actually leveled characters. Celeste and Terra are my strongest, so they get to stand on their own, with Luck and Mog teaming up for the C team. Then just kind of throw people in to make 3 character parties? This should be fine. Even if it's not, I can just leave and come back in later to only fight bosses with my best team members. And the good thing about Kefka's Tower is it has a good chunk of treasures hiding around the place to finish outfitting my party for the final fights. Will I finally get a spear for Mog that's better than Mithril? I'm skeptical, but we'll see. If nothing else, the force armor should be helpful against all the spells you have to deal with in this dungeon. And it's first boss time. Sabin, Edgar, and Celeste against Inferno, who comes out of the fight swinging with Atomic Ray and Metal Cutter, which is a rough start. I am starting to feel that lack of defenses caused by not being able to buy armor. I don't know why this fight manages to always be kind of obnoxious. Okay, let's adjust my relic setups a bit to hopefully keep the party alive longer than 3 seconds. Back into this fight, and my party isn't immediately destroyed, though Celeste must stand more or less alone. Good thing she has the Soul of Thamasa to take advantage of dual casting. That's not great. Let's shuffle some items around again. This time I gave Sabin a Reflect Ring to optimize his survivability. He isn't able to deal any real damage, but just having a second party member can take some of the stress off Celeste. Okay, there we go. That was a lot more difficult than I thought. I mean, Celeste was basically soloing the boss on the first few attempts, but still. Then Celeste must take down another boss. Seriously, am I doing progression here weird? Why does one party have more boss fights than the others? Anyway, it's Guardian, same setup as before, which means Celeste is basically just in charge of casting Ultima as much as she can. Not sure where Guardian got tentacles, but they sure are strong. Good thing Celeste can fully heal herself and cast Ultima. Thanks Dualcast for being such a balanced addition to this game's combat. The Guardian does its best to take down Celeste, but it's not enough. Not when I have so much Ultima. Next up, we must face down the Warring Triad, starting with Demon. Because Celeste really has to carry this entire final sequence on her own, apparently. While Demon has really strong spells and physical attacks, Celeste decides blocking every attack is the best move and finishes the fight without taking a single point of damage, which is frankly hilarious. Some of that is just the raw power of Ultima and Dualcast, some of that was just Celeste not having any more patience for this nonsense. Oh my goodness, a spear, finally! I mean, it's too late for a melee weapon to be even slightly useful, but still, a spear! Alright, next up is Fiend, who starts by freezing the entire party other than Terra. Fortunately, I did take a moment to switch over Celeste's equipment to Terra so she can also dodge attacks and dual cast. She does get frozen though, because Terra and Celeste are just built different, I guess. But not that different. Alternating Curaga and Ultima is still enough to end the boss fight pretty quickly, even if Terra is the only party member left, which means only one triad left, and it's Goddess. And that means I have 2 fully kitted out characters, which means a 50% increase in the amount of ultimas getting cast, albeit at about half effectiveness. On the plus side, Umaro is actually more useful than most of the other non-spellcasting characters, so this is probably the strongest party anyway. And it shows. Easy fight, easy W. Which means all that's left is the final series of fights against the everlasting Tower of Kefka. Oh, interesting. 10 Stoneheal party members in different groups. Good thing I have enough tents to go around. Hold please while I finalize the equipment setups on 9 different characters, most of whom I won't actually use. Okay, and that done, let's show Kefka what Ultima can do. And Mog immediately dies, so that's a great start. That is basically the last interesting thing that happens here. First, I want to pop up re-raise on everyone so I don't risk losing anyone mid-fight. The rest of the party is not nearly as equipped to fight here. Then Celeste and Terra focus on offense, while Locke and Mog focus on making sure the party stays healthy. It's not particularly difficult or even that interesting. There's just really nothing Kefka can do, because magic is really strong, as ever, probably too strong. The sheer strength of Dualcast even means Kefka, in his final form, doesn't get to use his signature Forsaken attack. Terra's the only character to even die, which means nothing because I have plenty of time to cast re-raise on everyone. And with a final Ultima, that is Kefka defeated. And that is FF6, beaten without being able to use any shop. And that went basically exactly how I expected. Some struggles early on where limited weapon and armor access were actually a problem, followed by a pretty effective sweep of the entire game because magic is way too strong, and with one exception, you don't buy Magicite. But I will have more to say about that in the summary video, out in a few weeks. I did want to shout out that I do have a Patreon, linked in the description. I spend a lot of time making these videos. So, if you enjoyed the video, want to support the channel, and are financially stable enough to do so, that exists. No pressure though, this channel is free to enjoy for everyone, and will remain that way. For now, if you liked this video, be sure to hit that like button. If you'd like to see more of this, feel free to subscribe. Hey, maybe leave a comment if you have something you'd like to say. But whatever you decide to do, have a safe trip home.